Hi, so right now around this table that we are sitting on, we have Aditi and Aditya, the co-founders of this lovely restaurant. I'm going to just, dive right in and ask you, what was the thought behind Masque? What was the idea 6 years ago when you opened Masque? Particularly because you did not have, a restaurant which served you 10-course tasting menus and, ingredient forward kind of a philosophy. What was going in your head when you first founded Masque?
So I think for me, the idea was to really put ingredients on a global map, and I think that came with, I think we travel a lot for dining experiences all over the world, and I think we're very conscious about how we consume luxury as well when we travel. And a trip to San Sebastian, really sort of sparked this idea that there was a huge gap in the market. I started a catering company 10 years ago, and also I think it was all about also feeding off like our clients sort of feedback of they'd come up from their travels, or they'd want these fine dine experiences, and really there wasn't anything like that in the city. And everybody would come back from all their trips and they're like, oh, can you cook this dish that I ate in south of France, or I ate in Spain, so we'd recreate stuff like that in catering. And running a boutique catering business for 6 years before I even opened Masque, I think that gave us a lot of insight into sort of even customer behavior.
It was also about providing local diners with that experience as well, because nothing existed at that time, which was ingredient driven, which was focusing on local produce, on sustainability, on ethically sourcing our stuff. And I think Aditi's vision was, she was very determined from day one after that trip of exactly what she wanted to do and how we wanted to do it. Also the micro communities that she connected with, you used that as a launch pad and went on a macro level where you went nationwide. Because also these communities were somehow interconnected with other communities across the region, and you slowly keep building on that.
I think for us it's that we're so excited and the team is so excited, and I think it's a collective effort, right? It's not only having a singular vision, it's almost like what everybody at Masque is about, is that it is a vision for everybody to do this. It's a village. It really takes a village to build a restaurant like this.
One thing that we've never shied away as restaurateurs and as people backing this vision is two things. One, we've never been shy of taking a risk, because only when you take a risk will you really understand. And we've also never said no. When it comes to learning, when it comes to trying new things, it could be anything, collaborating, going somewhere, we've never said no. Because I think to really enhance that creative process, not just for the person involved, but also for the diners, you have to allow that freedom for them to really push the boundaries. And I think that's what we've done from day one, is that we've constantly been trying to push the boundaries, whether it's in terms of the ingredients, whether it's in terms of the talent we've tried to get down to the restaurant, whether it's in terms of how we create a dish using even basic ingredients. That constant evolution and process has really allowed us to beat the curve and to kind of create a voice as well. Even restaurateurs perceived their offerings in terms of service, in terms of even educating the customer on what they're eating, in terms of, and I think, going forward, what's really important, I think, for us as a nation also to really bring our voice of food out and not just highlight, like she said, just naan and butter chicken and dal makhani globally. I think what's very important for the entire F&B community is also to come together and collectively speak about what we have to offer. Not just a particular city, but India as a whole. Because at the end of the day, the diversity in India is so unbelievable, from north to south and east to west. Every 100 meters is like a different cuisine. Every 100 kilometers is like a different cuisine or a different language or what. I think this will obviously take time, but I think going forward, if you really want India to shine on a global level in terms of the food as well, and the culture around the food, I think this is very important as well.
So what's the most unusual ingredient that Masque took and introduced on its menu and today is seen as a classic? in terms of an
I would
ingredient?
say that, you know,
Sea buckthorn.
many unusual, like right from like, you know, sea buckthorn.
Yeah,
because
sea
I think
buckthorn was one kind of that
which,
stood out for me when every time I've dined at Masque, because it was something you never thought you would ever eat in a urban kind of a city restaurant.
And I think I want to especially mention sea buckthorn is that also the kind of effort it took us to get that, you know, because, you know, you pluck the sea buckthorn, it starts fermenting, you know, so you can imagine the first time we got it, we got back 100 kilos to the
Even
restaurant.
the process
So
of
it's
getting it off the plant is just, it's hazardous almost. Like the amount of thorns you have to literally, just to get that little berry out, it's just crazy.
And so the locals there use it either for fencing or like it's just growing wildly. And you know, of course, in the pharmaceutical industry, everybody does use sea buckthorn, or you know, it's got a lot of nutritional benefits as well. But you know, whenever you would travel, you would see sea buckthorn feature on global menus, whether it's a very popular dish even through Scandinavia. All the restaurants have sea buckthorn on their menu. And when we discovered sea buckthorn in Ladakh, it was so exciting to, you know, it's really things like India literally has a climate to grow anything and everything.
I mean, that's why to go back to that diversity fact, like I think it's very important for us to showcase everything. And I think we're really proud that we can, in whatever little way, we are managing to showcase just the diversity of India, because I think it also allows, at the micro level, also the farmers to get a voice in some way possible, you know.
And we've really, through a Masque voice, been able to give a lot of our producers a voice of like the way Masque has been able to storytell on produce and technique, which is very exciting for us, just to even like, you know, create that content and live through those stories is, I think, super inspiring. So sea buckthorn, we've got fiddlehead ferns, we've got like kafal berries, you know, we've cactus and like
wild lavender we got, which is also from Ladakh, which again was
you
just
know,
growing out.
Once
like
we
all
went to
over.
the northeast, we got like ants back and we served it at a pop-up in London, and it was also
crazy.
featured on a Masque menu. So I think at every level we've tried to push the envelope. And sometimes it's been a big question mark, but you know, I think we've also grown and only become better at what we've
Having said
done
that,
the
there are
last 6
some
years.
ingredients that people in India in certain areas do use that I don't think the diners here are still prepared for.
Like what?
Like just really, like just exotic meats that I don't think it's going to fly yet. It's going to take some time.
Yeah, like in the northeast, everybody eats like mountain rats and wild
and
boar,
stuff
and
like-
like,
yeah,
you
it's just-
know, we're not being that.
not there.
we're
No,
not
no,
that.
I don't think we will
And I
get
don't
there.
think we,
I don't think we want
as
to,
a restaurant,
having said
want to
that.
go there.
Now, what are the kind of experimentations that you've done in the Masque lab over the last few years, the last 6 years that you've been there, you know, because one is of course getting the ingredients here, two is figuring a way to what to do with it for a modern diner, but also three is the kind of experimentations that go into, you know, what you create on that plate. Do you want to talk about some of the experimentations?
So, like when we took you to the lab, we showed you how we're blackening stuff, and I think that one of our most really talked about desserts a couple of years ago was when we served like mango in many different ways, and then like use the blackened mango, and like it was called liquid effing gold, because literally one drop of that was like, it really changed elevated the dish so much. So just like that, I think, you know, so the lab only came about 3 years ago. Before that, all our experimentations were happening within the kitchen itself. Pre-pandemic, we realized that actually all this experimentation needs a dedicated space. You know, we'd like to also see how we can take these experimentations to scale at some point and actually become a household name as well, and have some of these on shelves. And so that was the thought process, and also to have it as a freestyle kitchen, because we really wanted to, you know, obviously within Masque, we've confined ourselves into a philosophy and into some kind of a box where we don't want to move away from, you know, what we are doing here at the restaurant, because we want to have a singular vision of where we want to take Indian cuisine. But I think with the lab gives us that opportunity to experiment. you know, whether it's like doing a Korean barbecue, or really experiment and like let it be a freestyle kitchen where the chefs also want to be creative. And through COVID, you know, we ran like Chef's Pick, which was a weekend special menu.
And in terms of product, to get back to when you said what other different products, besides the blackening project, we also have where we're making kojis. We also ran a project where we made kombuchas, and we did all of that. We're also making different kinds of chilies and pickles. We're making plum wine now, for example. There's also that happening. So it's a constant evolution process. And like Varun had highlighted in the lab as well, maybe some of them don't make it to the plate. You never know. But at the same time, it also allows you to get that knowledge, right? Because at the end of the day, experimentation is also learning. So I think that is very crucial for a chef as well.
The one question I've always wanted to ask is this, that most restaurants, to maximize what they're serving here, would be doing an a la carte menu.
Correct.
You choose to do like a 10-course tasting menu,
Correct.
which is also not a fixed menu. A whole, right now, yes, I think we have come to a stage where we can think of that. But 6 years ago, we were not. If somebody were to even tell me at that point
lot
of
of people
time
call
that
us
you
crazy.
have to go to a restaurant and you have to, like, you don't know what you're going to eat on that 10 course, I would think about it.
So a lot of people
What
did
did
call
that
us crazy
take?
during that period. But even when we went to San Sebastian, to, you know, we also, and when we traveled the whole world over, so it's not like tasting menus are new to the dining space. Yes, in India it was. But when we decided to open it, we realized that to stick to the ethos of what we wanted to do, where we want to highlight ingredients, where we want to highlight seasonality, where we want to highlight sustainability, you cannot have the same ingredients throughout the year, because that also restricts your talent and your creativity. And this menu format of ours allowed us to stick to our vision of how we wanted to highlight the produce, how we want to highlight ingredients, and even as the seasons were evolving, as our menu was evolving as well, to highlight that as well.
And it's so funny that, you know, you say that, because obviously when we started as an only tasting menu restaurant, you know, there was a lot of education required. And I think the first 2 years, we experimented so much with the format. Like, you know, people don't have the patience to sit through 3 hours for a meal. They need to get up multiple times. They don't have the discipline, especially when they are in their comfort of their own homeland. That discipline is not there. They definitely do that when they travel, but that discipline wasn't there, and it almost required like training from our end to say that, you know, if you get up from the table, the course won't be served. You know, so we obviously. It was a huge learning curve, not just for us, but also for our diners, to understand the respect they need to give when they come to Masque, or they have a booking at Masque, respect to sort of the chef's creativity from the kitchen, or the respect of our service, or how we want to showcase or, you know, have you also enjoy this cuisine. But I wanna say something really funny, is that the first 2 years, we changed the format of, like, we've arrived at a 10-course tasting menu, I would say only the last 3.5-4 years. Before that, we were doing 3-course, 5-course, 10, and up to 15 courses. You know, we were trying to see what would work.
What was the threshold?
What is the threshold? Oh, like, you know, you can't sit for 3 hours, but okay, you can sit for 45 minutes, you know. So we really experimented, but I think, yes, we only wanted to stick to a tasting menu format, like Aditya said, is that we wanted to stick with only serving seasonal ingredients in prime, whether it was inspired from a recent foraging trip or what our farmers produced, and really highlight that. And only a tasting menu would allow us to do that.
Also, you know, in terms of community, in terms of being together, and when you're sharing, at the end of the day, when you're sharing a meal, you're sharing bread, right? What people I felt what we also wanted to do is also build the community, because when you're sitting on the same table and you're enjoying a meal, you kind of pause the madness outside your life. And the idea was also for diners to enjoy that experience of being together for 2.5 hours, having that interaction with each other, with the chefs, understanding everything. It did create a movement for us. Yes, it was very hard, I will not deny. In the first years, a lot of people thought we were mad, but I think we believed in ourselves, we stuck to our guts, and I think as times, we've proven ourselves. It's again, everything is freshly made, there's no bottle sauces, syrups in the entire bar or the restaurant. And a lot of people wanted to come just for the drinks, but they may not have wanted to sit for the whole meal. So what we also did with the living room is introduce a few items a la carte, which is the only place we have, because people still want to come and experience the drinks, but also have some of our food as well.
Okay, so you're talking about people thought you were crazy. I think people also thought you were crazy when you opened here.
Of course.
That had no creative outlet till a few years ago.
But when we first saw
and
this space,
we were so proud to have brought in so much life into this mill.
Created mills as a destination in some
mill
ways.
was very quiet 6-7 years ago. I remember when we saw it also, we'd seen 2 or 3 places, and then Aditi dragged me here and she said, please, let's see this place. When we came here, literally there was nothing. It was just a little shell with a roof. And I don't know, I guess I was also in a little bit, she must have caught me in the right moment. I must have been also mentally unstable at that time just to say yes. But I don't think either of us would change a second of what we've gone through in our journey.
But also, this was actually going to be
a catering kitchen
initially.
That was why it was first shown me. I wasn't saying it, but she said it. This was meant to be the headquarters for the catering kitchen, which I said fine, and we'll have a little event space here and the catering kitchen. And then somewhere we also changed our vision and our story, and not our story, our vision and our thought process actually. And that evolved, and I guess that's what gave birth to the restaurant. But like I said, I don't think either of us, whether it's the ups or the downs, we would not change a second of what we went through, because everything that we've gone through in the last 6 years, whether it's been good, the bad, the ugly, has allowed us to come to this point. And we're very happy and proud to be where we are right now, and we do look forward to just going higher and better and bigger.
So this was like a dining destination, not just for people from South Bombay, but from Bandra, because nobody really lived.
I mean, there were so many people who used to call us and say, "Where are you?" Like they'd be lost in the lanes outside, and "Where are you? I don't see the where." So even in terms of the decor, what Ashish has managed to achieve with the decor is, even when we were outside, and you don't really see just black. At night, when you come here, all you just see is black, and you see that little name highlighted. And even the thought process behind that is that, firstly, you're in the most non-conventional surrounding with a mill and all these old structures all around, and then you suddenly walk through the doors and you're suddenly transformed into another, you're transported into another space.
And
like when we're sitting inside, you don't think you're in what is outside is there.
Exactly.
Right?
And he really, I think, paid respect to the way he designed the space. Is really like, all the original structures still remain, but to create a restaurant which has longevity, because
it's like timeless, the design.
Even when he met me, he thought like, he's mad enough. And
I mean, I was driven mad by both of them, because I was one.
Yes, he is.
So then he said, obviously, like, this is going to be there even 10 years later. I said yes. So then he really designed for us to never age.
I think he is by far one of the most talented designers in the country. And what we discovered and achieved through the process is not only a good restaurant, a great restaurant, but also we have a phenomenal friendship now with him.
Also the location, I think, kind of contextualizes it quite well. It's like
Yes.
old and it's still new, kind of the timelessness of...
It's like art, it's contemporary art deco is how I like to look at it. Yeah.
If you were to define what the journey has been from then to now, and what gives you a sense of achievement and what your learnings have been, how would you do that?
So I would definitely think that it's been path-breaking for me as an entrepreneur, because we really sort of disrupted the dining space when we opened Masque, and it gives me great pride to be part of that, so almost like a pioneer in that movement. Of course, there have been amazing, great restaurants like Indian Accent, etc., that did create that. But as somebody who never came from a food background, like I was from the finance background, and again, a woman in the industry where it's such a male-dominated industry, not anymore, but I'm saying back then, to be taken seriously, even like, when I would, and it's so funny because obviously Aditya has always been leading from the back, but now he's sort of really very much involved. But even all the signing, like, whether it was the alcohol license, etc., it was like me going everywhere into these government offices. And
I also did.
I would really take everybody by surprise, like when I walked in, like.
But it was amazing because you know when a woman walks into these government offices, suddenly these babus suddenly straighten up, they become polite, and yeah, it was a lot easier. And I also used to joke with her. I said, if I ever have to do anything, at least it's your name everywhere, you know. So I can just run.
So it gave me a lot of sense of pride and independence, learning, and really for me, you know, I wake up with a new idea every day, and luckily I have a crazy mad enough team and family support to really make everything come alive, which has been, you know, you have to get the right people with you on a journey, and I feel like that has been the biggest learning or the biggest blessing.
For sure.
Part of what we've created. You know, Masque is featured also on Asia's top 50, #1 in India. So all this is great credit that we want to create, and it's the accolades are really important for, you know, any sort of win is important for the team spirit as well. But I think the sense of community that we've created, or a village that we've created in our organization, is what keeps us going.
I think one of the biggest learnings that we may have got over the last 6 years is also about teamwork, and not just the ones in the kitchen, but top to bottom, right from the person who's cleaning in KST to the guy who greets you at the door and welcomes you in. The sense of community and that belonging and that family feeling is across the organization. And I think,
and one of our head of KST, he started as a dishwasher, became the head of KST. He was leading literally the whole back of the house, and now he's in the kitchen.
And he's cooking.
He's on the hotline. He's become a chef
so
now.
I think that is also a healthy environment for any organization if you want to excel. So that is something that we also learned along the way.
Aditi, you have been in the background for most of Masque journey, though I'm sure you've been involved with it. For you personally, what has the journey been like from then to here? Because we've heard Aditi speak so much, she's been the face of the brand. But I really want to know from you, what has your own personal journey been with Masque?
So I always, Aditi knows this, I always stand on the outside in any discussion or debate, because it allows me to bring a different perspective. You see, I don't have something clouding a judgment of mine, and that's how me and her balance each other out like that. But I think the journey for me, I have always wanted to be in the F&B space as well as a kid and through college, and Aditi knows it. But obviously when she decided to take it on, there was blind support from my side, because firstly I would not believe in anyone but her, and I think it's something that I always wanted to do. But it's been a discovery for me. I'm a very people's person as well. So for me, it's been more about the interaction with the different diners, with the different chefs, with our trips that we went all over, that I had the privilege of going along with them for. I mean, it's just that overall learning for me. It's not just about the food for me. For me, it's about the whole, it could be the business side, it could be the marketing side, it could be the food side. I have been allowed to learn a lot more from all angles. And that may not have been possible just sitting on a desk, sitting somewhere behind in a room. Like just being able to travel, to get out there, to interact with everyone, I think has been very beneficial for me as an individual as well, and taught me a lot as well. And the fact that I always look at it from an outside perspective has allowed me to develop a lot more clarity in terms of the direction and the way we want to take things forward. There was no one who handheld us. Like we burnt and learned. We understood the harder way right in the beginning. That's how you learn. That's the fastest way to learn. So through our interactions, through our experience with different people from different parts of the world who may have been connected to this industry in different roles, whether it's a chef or any part, I think that learning for us and for me personally has allowed us collectively to make better decisions for the business and for the way we want to move forward. And I think this will only come, all of this knowledge only comes through experience and through interaction, which is invaluable in the long run.
What kind of Indian cuisine internationally, I mean, if we talk a little bit about that, because you do pop-ups abroad also, there was forever, there's this entire image of what it was, which was a very limited image, they weren't even aware of our other classics. Forget anything that's modern that's happening here. So, what has your experience been on pop-ups internationally? You know, when you kind of introduce them to literally India modern in some way, which is what I think a lot of this is. So, what's the
I think, like, of course, there are path-breaking restaurants, like whether it's Gagan Anand that did that for Indian cuisine and the way he did it, right? Like he's super talented and almost, but it's so theatrical, his food, right? Absolutely. And then like you have now Dhamaka, Chintan Pandey, who just won the James Beard Award.
Absolutely.
So it's not like chefs haven't been doing it. But I think what Masque is doing is, or when we go, even when we travel with our food, or we have traveled with our food, it's that we've sort of gotten a different, fresh voice or perspective, because it's not only about local and traditional, but really the way we do it is so international. It's not like we're serving molecular or Correct. It's very our food is not. It's not. Theatrical in that sense, but when you actually the flavors, right? It's so multifaceted and so complex. And I think that's what is Indian cuisine, is the complexity, right?
Even in terms of a general perspective on Indian cuisine, and even the collaborations that we've done internationally, I think people also, the reason why we also do that at certain is also that you're taking a little bit of their knowledge and talent and then merging it with your knowledge and talent. And I think historically Indian food has been about that, right? With all the change and the shift, and even in terms of who's ruling the country or who's coming in, or it could have been like, our culture and our food has been affected and evolved because of even the history of India. It's not just like Indian cuisine is, this is Indian cuisine. No. The diversity in Indian cuisine has been because of the foreign scene.
What I also meant to ask was, like, you did speak of Gagan or the other Indian
Dhamaka.
chefs who are Dhamaka, who are this. Many of them went from India, but they've been away for so long. That the Indian connection is very tenuous.
Correct.
Whereas you are rooted in the country, in some sense,
Correct.
So that is kind of a very different perspective, because while you may have gone from India, but if you've been away for 20 years and you come here once in a while, that connection is not that strong as the connection of a restaurant like Masque, which is rooted here. That for somebody who stays here, rooted here.
It's different for sure, but you can't say that it's non-existent.
No, of course not.
All due credit to them, they have their view of looking at how they're presenting their food, versus having stayed in the country and being able to be within India. I think it's just different the way we all
I think
perceive
also
food.
it is obviously a huge advantage because we're so connected to the stories.
Correct.
So yes, there is a huge advantage of being a restaurant rooted in India, is also that when we say the stories, we're really saying it with a deeper connect.
Correct.
And it's more relevant in that sense because we're so connected to our story or our journey, whether it is of a region or a culture or produce, it's right there in our backyard.
Yeah, and we're foraging all the time. So like we are real-time connect. We're evolving real-time. Versus, like you said, if someone comes once in a few years, he may touch a certain area. Whereas us, we're in connect and in contact with all our farmers or
even to go suddenly go make a trip to get something. It's for us, it's just a thought and we can act upon it.
Obviously you can do it from outside, but at the end of the day, when your story is about India, from India, in India, I think it has a lot more weightage.
And I think modern Indian has actually become almost like a cuisine type, right? Because
sure.
even when I do this in my caterings, it's like earlier on it would be like, okay, can we have Indian or this? Now people say, oh, also can we have modern Indian,
And it's kind of minimalistic, but complex at the same time. That's the beauty of it.
You have now grown the business, right? I mean, after Masque came so many. You had a catering business, of course, then came Masque. But literally as a brand, Masque as a brand, you have the bakehouse now, you have, the living room, the bar over here. You're working with Araku, which we spoke about earlier. You have you're running the cafe in Bangalore
and in BKC
and
as well,
BKC
Seesaw.
also. Yeah. So in terms of growing the brand, what's been the vision been, and what's there on your mind?
So the overarching hospitality brand is called Urban Gourmet, and so Masque, Sage and Saffron, Bakehouse all come under that umbrella. And of course, I think that over time I'm also wanting to do things that I truly enjoy and I want to be proud about. And I think Araku was one such sort of movement that I wanted to be connected to a social economic enterprise, and the work that they're doing with the farmers, everything relates back to also sort of my journey with Masque. And I really resonated when I went to that region and saw the transformation. I don't think there's a story like that of farming and agriculture in the country, compared to what Araku's done. And I think like for us also, like creating an iconic brand like Masque, and then to get opportunities with a brand like organization like Nandi, or working with Reliance Brands is huge. It's a huge moment of pride that we are doing something.
It kind of validates what you've done, right? What you believed. I mean, you may have believed in it, but the fact that now stalwarts are believing in what you've done, whether from different industries, it validates everything you've put in.
Correct.
And I think it's not just validation for us. I think it's validation for the whole team, because we've only reached here collectively with all of them. So I am extremely proud, and I think it's very
it also
good.
gives other people opportunity, like if they felt saturated at some point within something, to be able to move them within our brands as well,
now,
without losing the people.
But now going forward, obviously what we're trying to do as an organization is, obviously Masque is there, the living room is there, now we've launched the bakehouse. So now we're also trying to leverage our brand positioning and our presence and get into the scale side of businesses where the bakehouse comes into play. Or there are 2 other projects that are in wraps that we're trying to get into. Obviously the philosophy of quality, ingredients, the product is always going to be at the top. We're not going to sacrifice or cut corners on any of that. But we want to get into products or businesses that we can scale up. Because to build value for the organization as a whole, you need to have some things that show scale for anyone to find it attractive, or even for us. So that, I think, is the way forward that both of us are identifying, is that you obviously, and it's learning. Again, this has not been something that this has been a learning of ours over the last 2-3 years. Even through the pandemic and before that, we realized that there's only so much that you can do, right? There's only so high you can go with a single entity. But if you start looking at business from an angle of scale, there are other things that you can do which maintain the same quality, which maintain the same philosophy and ethos of the way you run everything, but you take it to scale.
And you create your own ecosystem in that sense, right? And we love food, and we're so passionate about people and culture that we just want to keep growing it.
Great, thank you so much for having us here. Thank you for this lovely
It
conversation.
was really amazing. Thank you.
Thank you for coming over.